I'm going to try. And my talk kind of centers around something I saw a couple weeks ago. And I was watching the news, and on the news, the correspondent said a phrase that I'm sure all of us have heard before. He said, "The reality of the situation." And I started to think about that phrase, the reality of the situation, and what that implies. The idea that we can honestly say that this is reality, that what I'm saying is right and you are wrong. The more I thought about this, the more I realized that's impossible to say, for so many different reasons. And today, I'm going to talk to you about one particular way that we don't really know how to state what is reality. And it's something that surrounds us every single day that we might not notice. It's copies and replicas, reproductions. Now, this topic started a long time ago, actually with someone you're probably pretty familiar with, Plato. Plato looked at a copying system that has been around for ages, and he looked at writing. And he said, writing is great because it helps our memory. If we can write something down, we can study it and memorize it. And then Plato said, well, if we can write something down, why do we need to memorize it? It's a two-way street. And Plato came up with a term. He called this a pharmakon. And a pharmakon is something that is both good and bad. Now, the debate didn't stop there. In fact, as new technologies came along, the debate continued. Filmography, photography, simulations, all of these had some kind of argument of whether they're good or bad. Well, today, we're going to talk about 3D printing. And if we're in the same position as Plato, deciding if this new technology that we haven't really thought about yet is a pharmakon. But before I do that, let's talk about why copying is dangerous to our reality. Why it might confuse us as if to say, we can't actually state the reality of the situation. Let's think about it. What is a copy? And how do we perceive our reality? And when those two ideas intertwine? Well, if we think about it, our senses are always taking in information. That information goes to our mind. And there we form cognitions and we label, we categorize, and we decide that this thing is this. Think about the chairs in the room right now. The moment you walked into this room, you saw legs, cushions, about this high off the ground. They're stationed around a table. I'm going to sit in it. Instantaneously, you know that's a chair. And you do this so fast that we never think about it. Okay. Well, what happens when we make a copy? We take all of those things that instantaneously tell you that the chair is a chair, and we reconstruct it. So there's 150, maybe 100 chairs in here, and they all are sending your eyes the same information, which then is communicated to your brain, and your brain goes, oh, that's a chair, and that's a chair, and that's a chair, so on and so forth. So in that situation, we don't really care that we have a whole bunch of copies. Who cares about a chair? But what happens when we start copying something that has significance? And this is where it gets a little abstract. And I'm going to require you to participate with me. All right. These paintings, they are both paintings. One of them is a very famous painting called The Girl with the Pearl Earring. Another painting is a copy that has been made by a company that creates oil paintings in the same way that the original was created, to sit in a museum. Now, I know which one is the original. Do you? Raise your hand if you think it's painting number 1. I'm so happy you participated. Raise your hand if you think it's painting number 2. Also, like half the room. That was amazing too. So, right now, the reality of the situation, there's 2 of them. Half of you think it's painting number 1. The other half of you think it's painting number 2. And you're relying on the same information, so there is no way for either of you to say that you are more right than the other person. let's think about what just happened. If you chose painting number 1, congratulations, you're right. If you chose painting number 2, don't ever go into art. But it's totally okay because you had no way of knowing. You had to guess. That's the point. So what happens when we guess? Well, for the group who chose painting number 1, your reality is that that painting is incredibly valuable. Thousands of people go to see it every single year where it rests in Holland. It's worth lots of money. And if you saw it, you could tell your family members and they would be marginally impressed. Here, group number 2, you stripped the original of everything that's valuable about it and said number 2 is valuable. Well, number 2 is a copy. So in your reality, a copy was incredibly valuable, worth lots of money, and you could impress a date that you're on saying that you have seen the original. That happened instantaneously. You didn't even think about it. And that happens all the time. We are surrounded by copies and replicas. Now, usually, replicas are made in a particular fashion, such as painting, as in these two, behold the same tradition. They were both done by artists. But now, we have new technology that can replicate and do things that we had never seen before. Anyone know what this is? No one? All right. These are King Tut's mummies. One of them is King Tut's mummy. The other is a 3D printed model of King Tut's mummy that's so perfect, archaeological experts cannot tell the difference based on their eyes alone. This was made just recently. Now again, I can tell you which one is the original, but I want to make you guess again, because that's really fun. So here we go. Top one, by a show of hands, who thinks that's the original? Everyone's a little bit more skeptical. Bottom one, who thinks that's the original? All right, I'm going to say it's 50-50 again, just to prove my point. The top one is the model. The bottom is the original. Now let's think about that situation. Not only were there two realities in the situation again, but now we messed with time. And that just sounded super hippy-dippy, but let me explain what I mean. If you say the top one is the original, then you are looking at something that was made a month ago, and in your mind, you now think it's made hundreds, or it was found and created hundreds of years ago. Your ability to understand time in this situation has completely changed, because the information going to your eyes is the same. Isn't that kind of cool? And the ironic part about this is we made the technology to do this to us. So, really, what I'm getting at is that we sit in this position much like Plato. We've created this new technology that is able to convince us that what we're looking at is the same as something incredibly important. We don't really know what we're looking at. Our perceptions are limited. Our eyes and our senses can only do so much, and we rely the rest on our cognitions. But now, we have 3D printers. And if y'all have never seen a 3D printer work, I highly suggest searching it on YouTube, because they can replicate in ways that we have never seen before. The individual who made this model, his name's Gary Staub. What he did was amazing. He simply used a CAT scan, scanned King Tut's mummy, and then used paint. And like I said, it is so perfect that experts on King Tut's mummy cannot tell the difference. So, what do we think about this? Well, 3D printers also can do some amazing things, such as create human organs. Right now, there's a company that's trying to do that. But we also get put in this position where we mess with time, we change value, and we argue with other people that we are more right, even though we don't have the evidence to state. So really, what I'm getting at is that whenever someone tells you, no, the reality of the situation, well, you can look back at them and go, well, you don't know, and I don't know either. Thank you.